Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. And today I am joined by Mr. Andrew Wilson. He is a trauma survivor turned quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, as well as an author and podcast host of Beyond Transcendence. And I'm happy for him to be on the show today. Thank you, Andrew, for being on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If you could just real quick tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me who you are.
Well, a little bit about me is, I grew up in a great home, but I had a lot of trauma growing up. I was bullied a lot by my peers, and I had a lot of problems with education because I didn't really apply myself. So I had some trouble with that, and I just kind of had that mindset of being anxious all the time. I'd walk by crowds, and I couldn't enjoy laughter for a very long time because I always assumed people are laughing at me. So it kind of took over me, and that kind of followed me all the way through my adulthood. And I was in and out of relationships, and I didn't really know how to like be myself because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. So I was reactive. I was always traumatic. There was always something that would trigger me and catch me off guard, and I would always end up like blowing up for no reason and having meltdowns. And I got into a real serious relationship, and she also had trauma as well. So we kind of trauma bonded. We didn't really deal with our trauma on both sides, and we just kind of got comfortable with one another, and we just stayed in that lost feeling for years. And I was working in the oil and gas sector at one point, and it was a very toxic environment. There was a lot of yelling and screaming. You were called like every name in the book. Basically, it was a very, you had to be gritty to be a part of this, and I'm not a gritty person by any means. I am, what my wife tells me is I have the biggest heart, so I give my heart to everybody. And then I left there and I decided to go and work in the railway, hoping that it would be something different. In fact, it was the opposite of what I thought, and it was even more toxic and even more detrimental to my health and my relationship. So in 2021, my mother decided to come up and see me, and we weren't really talking much then. And the last time I spoke to her, she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to Mexico." And I said, "Oh, that's great." And then a week later, I get a phone call saying that your mother's in really rough shape and we don't know how much longer she's going to have. So I went to the hospital, and then they told me that she was doing well. So I was like, "Oh, that's great." And then came around midnight, I got a phone call and they said, "We don't know how much longer she's going to be with us, so you better get here ASAP." So I drove to the hospital in the quickest time. This was also during the time of the pandemic, so I had to gown up and do all that crap. And once I was gowned up, I went inside and I just seen her all hooked up to machines, and you could see that there was no life left in her, and she was trying to stay with me, but in the end, she couldn't hold on. So it was eight hours of that grueling experience, and after that, I was so angry, and I resented my girlfriend at the time. I resented myself. I resented just the situation. I resented the doctors for not trying, and I was just so angry. And then I was at work, and I was talking to some of my coworkers, and I asked them like why like they never got the vaccine, and they said it was an infringement to rights. So I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." So then I decided to investigate and go down the rabbit hole, and then I was experiencing and things that just weren't sounding right. So then I tried a different approach, and I went to an holistic healer, and she was like, "You should check out this author. Her name's Dolores Cannon." So I was like, "Okay." And me, I didn't like reading books. I barely read books growing up because I just didn't apply myself. So I started to read her books and fell in love with it. And it kind of showed me the inside of my trauma and how to heal it, like, and what ways to do it, and the ways that we think that are impossible. Like, our mind is basically what keeps us trapped. It keeps us sick, it keeps us sore, it keeps us depressed, anxious. It's our mind. It's always been our mind. And when I realized that, I started to figure ways to heal my mind. And then as I started to heal my mind, my body started to follow as well. And it was that moment that I decided to quit my job and become a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. And I really enjoyed like working one on one with people and helping them. And then something inside of me said, you should start a podcast because I had always wanted to start a podcast when I was young or be on the radio when I was younger. But I was told I wasn't good enough and I wasn't meant to be a radio broadcaster. I didn't have the education or the knowledge to be a good radio and broadcaster. So I learned that I grew with that inside of me. And then when this opportunity arose, I was like, why not? So at first, I just did a couple of solo episodes and then I decided to start interviewing people. And it's been the greatest thing. And during that time, I really got involved in journaling because I was just wanting to write down things. And I came across this guy who had this book writing platform. So he kind of gave me the layout of how to write a book. So I just didn't really type much at first. I just kind of got on the mic and just started talking. And I couldn't believe the amount of stuff that came out of my mouth and the amount of pent up trauma that I had. It was like reliving my trauma over again. But at the same time, it was good because I got it off my chest, I got it out. And I also learned some more like wonderful modalities like breath work and meditation and yoga. And they all just kind of synchronized with me. And now I try to do them with my practice. I try to reach out, I do content, try to do content daily just to kind of give a message to those people who are struggling with their trauma and that you are not alone. Like we all have trauma and we all experience it. It's how we deal with it, though, that will basically create the path of our life. And if we don't deal with our trauma, then we're bringing it with us everywhere we go. We're bringing it with us into our relationship, our jobs, our sports, like whatever we do outside of ourselves, it's there. It's never going to leave you until you deal with it. And by dealing with, I don't mean forget about it because you're never going to forget your trauma. I mean, embody it, own it, believe in it, absorb it, and let it be you because that part is you. And for me, who like went through it and survived and didn't take my life, and I thought about it numerous times of taking my life, but I couldn't go through with it. For those who are struggling out there right now with depression or anxiety, you have the tools to heal yourself. But it's your belief. It's your trust in yourself. And when you start to trust and believe in yourself, there's so many limited possibilities for you to heal. And that's my story.
I know so many people deal with that. I deal with it personally. I've had depression since I was 13. I had anxiety since I was 18. And a lot of people, especially for men, don't open up about it. And I've talked to a lot of my friends about it because they say, well, you sure do open up and talk about it a lot. And even when I've done group therapy sessions, I share a little bit too much, I feel, or I believe. But I show people that I'm not scared to talk about it. And so a lot of people have shown huge admiration for me for being able to speak up about it and be able to show my emotions because I've thought about taking my life too, never did. And then I always have tried to tell people it gets better, and I know that's cheesy, but it does. It just takes time. But I know a lot of people they don't deal with trauma as much. And even trauma comes later in life. Like I had something traumatic happen to me when I was 18, 19, and people just don't understand. So, and what's the biggest misconception people have about healing trauma?
I think the biggest misconception that people have is that trauma it can is like something that's really traumatic and it's like it's gonna be there, but it could be just the smallest thing. It could have happened when you were a baby and you don't even know it. Like the biggest misconception of trauma that I've noticed is people think it's like something that's very traumatic that can happen to you, but no, there's like a small, tiny little thing that you could remember as a child, as an adult. It could be a small thing. It could be a tiny little insult. And from that moment, your brain starts to replay it because you thought about it. Now it's in your head. Now you're creating it. The second you think about something, it's in there already and it's already a part of your creation. And you could be just hanging around with friends, joking around, and that same joke or insult arises. And guess what? You're triggered. And that's when you're going to react or you're going to feel almost sad or something inside of you just from that one thing. So the biggest misconception is that it's not just a big traumatic event. It can be something as small as a tiny little joke or insult.
I deal so much with I don't have an eating disorder, but I've always had trouble with weight and eating growing up, and I get very triggered when I hear something comment about my eating habits. And my mom's about the only one that, will be, don't say anything about that like that to him. But it's so hard trying to hide it and try to like make it to where it doesn't bother you. But I've even told people now, I said, don't say that because it's a trigger for me. I mean, I do
Mm.
because I think people think that I don't eat because of how skinny I am, but I literally pig out on stuff, and it it's kind of like a backhanded slap to the face of like, well, I do eat, but I don't know how to prove it to you. It gets so annoying, and then other stuff saying I get real offensive about my growing family, and so when I get jokes about that, oh, that triggers me so much. What advice or what do you say to someone who feels like they've tried everything and nothing is working?
I would say, well, now that you're aware of it, in the moment you feel triggered, the thing I would suggest, and this is what I do for myself, is I pause, I take a breath, and I ask myself, why is this bothering me? What is this going to serve if this is bothering me? You are not your trauma. You are not your eating habit or whatever you want to call it. You are not that. That is a part of you that has been programmed into you, but you can unprogram it just by being aware of it. And by being aware, you find a way to say it could be a breath work, it could be meditation, or some form of self-care that will help you when you're feeling triggered. If you have to close your eyes and have a breath, close your eyes and have a breath. Whatever's going to help you in that moment to just stay calm and not feel triggered, that's growth right there. And it takes practice. I'm not gonna lie, I've been doing like there's good days and there's bad days. Like this journey of life is not gonna be easy. It is like going to a job every day. You got to
Hmm.
show up and do the work. It's the same as yourself. When it comes to healing, you got to show up and do the work. If you don't show up and do the work, because there's going to be days where you're going to say, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. I don't
Right.
want to. And those days, they're the hardest days, but I'm going to tell you right now, when you ignore the no's and you don't do it, you step back. And believe me, I've done it a couple times where I haven't done the work and I've stepped back and I've felt miserable. I've felt sad. And when I did it, when I said, no, I'm not going to do it, it empowered me. It inspired me because I want to help people and I want people to understand that they literally can heal themselves and literally can embody their trauma and make it a part of them and learn to treat it not as trauma, but as a reminder of how far they've come, what you've gone through, what you have survived. You no longer have to survive. You've already survived. You've already done the work. Now it's time to empower yourself, inspire yourself, and then inspire others to do the same. And then they'll inspire. It's like a chain. Like the more we heal ourselves, the more we heal others. And when we heal the others, they heal the rest. And then it's like a chain reaction. It never stops. That's why there's so much division right now. There's so much animosity towards one another. Like, we're all the same. There's no difference between any of us. We are all trauma bonds. We have all seen trauma and we all react different when we go through the trauma.
Yep.
And we don't let the but we let the trauma control us. And that's why we become reactive. That's why we say mean things like hate and want to like divide and you're left and I'm right. It's like, no, we're the same. It doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your sex, it doesn't matter anything. We are all the same. We are all trauma survivors, every last one of us. And until we understand that, of course, there's going to be division. But once we do understand it and we start to heal ourselves, people around us start to heal because they see our vibration, they see our frequency, and they can feel the positivity, the love coming from us. And because they can feel it, they either want to be near it or we push them away because they're not ready yet. But there's people that will draw to you, Noah, right away. When you start to embody your love for yourself and you keep doing that day in, day out, that practice, you will be a mentor to those who struggle with what trauma you had. I'm mentoring people who struggle with fear and trauma. Yours is eating, and there's others that's depression, anxiety. We're all connected traumatically. And when we heal ourselves, we heal others. That's the beautiful thing about the journey of life. When you start to realize and you wake up and you stop thinking unconsciously and you start to have that conscious moment where you want to have success, you want to heal people, you want to help others, it changes your DNA. It changes whatever's going on inside of you and it rebuilds you and makes you whole again.
Everything that you said right there, I think needs to be heard because we do live in such a divided country. It's everyone gets offended about everything. Everyone has an opinion about everything. I mean, it 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 kills me how divided we are because some people have arguments about what kind of scissors are the best, and then they'll argue with you that's not the best pair. You're using it wrong, and we don't, to everyone out there, to people that don't understand, I have said this to you. If you don't suffer from trauma, if you don't have depression, anxiety, be grateful for it because, it's something that you don't have to worry about. But for people that do have gone through it, it's not a slap to the face. It's not. We, I know people are going to think that you are different because of it. Do not let them in their comments tell you that. It's more of a, you got to show them and prove to them that just because I've gone through this and I still go through it does not mean that I'm going to go down that same path. And it doesn't mean that's going to change my whole thing as a person. And I've seen that even from job hunting as well. I've been doing, and then, I remember I was getting honest on some of the applications I applied for, and I put, yes, I do suffer from mental health conditions. I do suffer from depression, suffer from anxiety. I do suffer from PTSD on to an extent. And then I remember I was talking to my mom about it, and she said, jobs are not going to put you or want to hire you because of your mental health history, because they are going to think that you're not able to do the job. And I want people to know that don't let that stop you. That's just their way of saying that they don't, just because they say that you can't handle the job does not mean you can do it. And I have tattoos as well, and I know that has a key factor in there as well. Um, None of my tattoos are inappropriate, and I just hate that people like to say, "Oh, he has tattoos. He's not able to work." It kills me. And I want people that listen to this to say that if you suffer from it, you're not alone because people out there suffer from it every day. And don't be scared to open up about it. I think we live more in a society where people do tend to open up a little bit more, kind of, on some stuff. I mean, better than when I was growing up in in the 2000s, it was very much taboo to talk about. Now it's more freely to some extent, depending on some people and who you were talking to and around with. But you know, some of my advice that I have is I've done breathing breathing techniques. For me, music helps a lot. Just putting on music, even if it's a sad song, it helps me in that moment. And then I know this sounds really, excuse me, weird, but I remember I did therapy one time, and this therapist that I was doing it with told me to close my eyes and pretend I was on a beach. I always thought, oh, this doesn't work. None of this works because how do you sit here and hear? It was like an out of body experience. I remember sitting there, and all of a sudden, I could hear the ocean going, and I could hear seagulls in the background. I thought I was teleported somewhere. I thought, am I dreaming? I know that sounds real crazy, but if you really go back and think of it, it works. And after we were done, he said, "Did you actually hear something?" I said, "I did." "Did you accidentally put like a CD tape on?" I was like, "Did you pull a YouTube video up or something?" But it actually was real of like being able to de distress and everything. Um, do you have daily rituals or tools that you use to keep yourself in a line when fear creeps in?
Definitely. I do a thing called beats and breath. I do a meditation done by Samuel Lee. I do hatha yoga. I practice a lot of things that get my mind straight, and I also journal. Journaling is a really good thing. And what you're mentioning about like visualizing the beach, I do that a lot too. That's how we visualize our day. Like your personality is your personal reality, is like Joe Dispenza would always say. Your personality is your personal reality. So in the mornings before I jump out of bed, I visualize my day and how it's going to go. So I exactly know what you're talking about. It's called the art of visualization. It's also part of like the law of assumption that Neville Goddard talks about. So it doesn't sound weird at all because a lot of people, that's how they manifest their dream jobs. That's how they manifest money to come, like a relationship to start. Like it's not weird. It's actually magical. It's part of the quantum field. I'm not sure if you're familiar with quantum physics or not, but what you're talking about is part of the quantum field. And practicing it more really helps, especially in those moments where you're feeling triggered. You just visualize yourself at the beach and you won't be triggered no more, I guarantee it.
Another thing I've found that helps is kind of like the list process, and the people listening, it takes a minute to explain, but
Mm.
my therapist at the time told me to think very generic. I mean, and this could be anything. And then as you're, and this is usually when you're having anxiety or you're starting to have a moment that you usually do this. You just pick five random things to think about. So for me, to break it down, I could say, okay, name five Disney movies. That's very simple. And then the next thing could be list five Disney movies that feature a female protagonist. And then it kind of makes your brain think more. And then another thing would be break it down even further and be like, list five Disney characters that have black hair. And so then your brain is going through the mind trying to think, okay, I'm only thinking about who has black hair. And sometimes you think about it for like 30 minutes. Um, so and do that, and it doesn't have to be that. It could be something very generic of list five cereals, and then list what's okay, and then list three cereals that are in the shape of a circle, and then you kind of just break it down and get more very much more specific. And then once you get more specific, you start working, and your brain starts to focus more and more on that, and less about what you're in the anxiety for. Now, I do understand and get that when people do have anxiety attacks, that sometimes if you're having severe attacks, that nothing helps and nothing usually can do it. I have been in those moments where I hear what you're saying. That's not going to help me right now. And sometimes you just have to let it run its course. And that's totally okay. Don't think that just because you can't do it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. So, because I've done it sometimes and it works, and then other times it's just too much into the stress and depression. It's like, I can't do that. I just let it run its course and let it go through the process. It, I could talk about this for hours, literally, because it's such an important thing to me. And I think still people don't talk about it enough. I mean, I think I made like a 40-minute episode about just me talking about my mental health on it because I just ranted about my whole journey from it from when I was 13 till now because it's been a decade now at this point almost that I've dealt with it. If you could, what does it mean to you to live beyond transcendence, and how is that reflected in your book, your podcast, and your life now?
Transcendent from the person I used to be to the person I am now. Letting go of all that anger, letting go of all that sadness and divided thoughts and opinionated and always wanting to be right and egotistic and allowing everything to control me. So I transcended into something that wants to heal, wants to help, wants to be whole, wants to love, and wants to be a part of something beautiful instead of something ugly and um ugly and like rude or hateful, you would say. But when I transcended, it was like something inside of me just kind of clicked and said, that's enough. You don't need to do that anymore. We need to do this instead. And I was like, what? I'm like, I must be crazy. And then it was like I kept meditating more and more, and it just kept giving me more and more answers and more ways to heal and more reasons to want to heal others. and more reasons to now, like when someone's triggered around me or reactive, the first thing I want to do is ask them, what's going on? Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Instead of becoming reactive as they are and raising my voice. Now, the second they are angry, the first question I want to know is what's going on? What do we need to talk about? It's like reverse course, because I was the total opposite. When someone would be reactive with me, I would get reactive with them. Now, if someone's reactive around me, the first thing I want to do is help them. So I guess the transcend would be mere maturity, growth, and showing love to myself is showing love to others. Regardless of what they've done, I don't judge. I don't care personally. I would rather help that person because I know when I help that person, they're going to help the next person. So the transformation for me is love instead of hate.
For people that want to find you and want to more into you, because I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think this is awesome what you're doing. Leaving good message. Where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Beyond Transcendence with Andrew. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can go check out my website, www.andrewfwilson.com, or you can go on Amazon and purchase the book, The Enemy Within, Fear is Our Greatest Opponent. And also, people, it's not even about finding me, it's about finding yourselves. And when you find yourselves, you'll find home. And when you find home, you pass it on to the next one.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being on today. I think this is going to help people a lot and make it to be like, I think they don't want to hear me say it anymore because it's like, oh, one person. I think having another person be able to talk about it hopefully will give like, oh, so it's not only one person, it happens to more than one person. So thank you so much for coming on today and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. And I know that you help a lot of people and it's going to have an everlasting effect on it.
Well, thank you for having me, Noah. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I wish you much love, my friend.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm so dumb. I just turned my microphone off with my nose. Don't ask me how. But, anyways, that was my interview with Mr. Andrew Wilson. He had so many good points. He had so much insight. He gave me such great advice, and I really, really appreciate him for being on the show today. I don't think I mentioned it during the interview, but his information will be in the description box. I will make sure that his info's down there. I usually say that in the interview, and I guess I forgot. It might have been early. I don't know. It might have been early in the day. And if it was, my brain don't work. But I appreciate you guys all for listening to this episode. If you would like to keep track of me, follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Lethal Venom Podcast. You can catch all the teasers, previews, and the surveys. Of course, there was no survey today since there was a guest. And if you would like to follow me on other platforms, I am also the host of the Music Talks podcast, the show where I talk about music and only music and basically cover albums and from the past and present. And I'm also the host of the Southern Reads podcast, a book podcast that focuses mainly on books. And those two podcasts and this podcast are all available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and basically everywhere you get podcasts, it's there. All three of them are. You are more than welcome to email me, lethalvenompod@gmail.com. If you have any inquiries or have any troubleshooting with the episode, please let me know. I really appreciate you guys all for listening again, and I will make sure to, and also leave, I hate asking this, but leave a review or just a ranking of the podcast. It might not mean anything, but it definitely does help the podcast a lot, even if you just rate it. So if you could just take 2 seconds and rate it, that would be awesome. As always, thank you for listening. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, week, night, whenever you listen to it, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Lethal Venom.